Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so thankful to have you here. We are discussing women building the future of film. My name is Jacqueline Fabricius. I am one of the people who runs 11th Hour Productions, and I am so honored to be sitting with these incredible women, and we are just going to chat. The design of this piece of our programming is to be really conversational. We do have a few points to kind of guide our conversation, but we really want to have it be a conversation among us and then a conversation just that we all get to have together for that second half. So thank you for joining us, and I will allow each of our incredible speakers to introduce themselves quickly, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi. My name is Abba Arthur. I am a filmmaker. I'm an actor. I am the ambassador of the diaspora for Ghana, West Africa's National Film Festival, which is the Black Star International Film Festival. I also serve as the vice chair of the Dean's Advisory Board of the University of Colorado at Boulder, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi, my name is Liz Cardenas. I am a producer and writer-director. I had 2 films at Sundance in previous years. I'm a former journalist, and I will say that I'm on the board of a nonprofit organization called Breaking Through the Lens. I'm part of an organization called Producers United and the PGA, and I'm also a SAG-AFTRA member, and I'm so happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Julia Kennelly. I am a producer and a filmmaker. I am an alum of the Sundance Producing Lab as well as the festival, and I'm so happy to be able to be here talking with all of you about the future of women in film.
Thank you, ladies. These women are absolutely incredible. I'm truly honored to get to sit and chat with you today. We are just going to jump in to our conversation. We are seeing a profound shift in who gets to tell our collective stories. And to start our conversation, what is the unique strength that female leaders bring to the independent landscape? How is your presence behind the scenes fundamentally changing the types of stories that are being told? I would love to just hear your perspectives.
Okay. So when we talk about this, it's important to talk about intersectionality as well. When you're somebody who has multiple identities, as we all do, and some of them are visible, you walk through life with a level of balance. You see through a different lens, and you're able to write and tell stories that come from a balanced perspective. Balance is the key word here. So as long as you take your experiences with these different identities and you turn it into wisdom, you're able to tell a very holistic story. And I think that's really special for women as filmmakers.
And I love that you use the word balance, because that's so true. And you know, the word that popped in my head was like authenticity. And so it's one of those things where if women are 50% of the population, then there should be more representation in the stories that are being told. And so you need more women in leadership positions to be able to greenlight a picture, hire people, and shepherd these types of stories. And through that like authentic lens, you know, the different issues or things that affect women will come out more clearly through the stories and have greater impact.
Yeah, I think, you know, advice that's always given to filmmakers is to make the movie that you would want to see the most. And I think that is so important to have people who are making the movies that there is an audience for who maybe have not been served that content. And so, you know, whether that's about being a woman or any other identity that we may have, it's so important to think about what is unique to you, that you love, that you know there's someone else out there who loves that too, and that you can bring opportunities to other people to be a part of that process.
Yes, we've spoken a lot this weekend in our different conversations about the value of that, because stories make people feel, right? That's what we're doing. We're bringing something that makes someone feel for whatever reason, right? And the only way that you can know the story you're telling is you tell the things that you know, right? And so when we have more people sharing the stories that they know who have not historically been given that opportunity, that's when we start to see the change, right?
And I think that also then creates more empathy in the world in general, because you're seeing things that you might not be aware of, or you see yourself that, like you said, you hadn't seen before. And I think that can help change culture, humanity.
Absolutely, yes. For the people being represented who haven't been, and also for the people who need to engage with groups of people they haven't engaged with before, right? It's a twofold, absolutely. Beyond just hiring female directors, how can we reimagine the on-set culture and hierarchy to be more inclusive and sustainable for women and parents? Honestly, I think parenthood is a big part of this conversation as well.
Yeah, and I think that one, because I think, there's so many different layers to this. And obviously, yes, the more diverse your leadership is, the more everyone is going to feel comfortable in that space. But the parenthood, it's really hard. It's really hard. If you have a young kid and you have to work for 14 hours in a day, it's really difficult, And I think we all, I'm sure, I'm not a parent, but I have a lot of friends who are. And it's a lot of times I've been the only woman on set. And my friends have been, if you're in a position that's traditionally masculine, especially, to be like, oh, I need to go pump because I need a fridge to put my breast milk in. And people are like, oh my God, oh yeah, of course you do, I guess, yeah, sorry. Right, you know what I mean? And but then it's so not only are you doing, you do have to do so much labor on top of the labor. And it is not a work environment that is easily conducive to that.
Yeah. And to go along with that, there's a level of care that comes along with it, that if we see it as a leadership quality rather than a liability, then we will respect it more. When a woman does have to go and pump or bring your child to set or whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, it becomes more an asset to your strength rather than anything else.
And I hate to stereotype or generalize, but I can speak from my perspective, or from me, that I am a very nurturing person, and so when I am producing something and I'm running a set, I'm coming from that place, which I think is a strength. And even though sometimes people can lump that in as being a little bit more as a feminine quality, let's say, or as a mother, even if I'm not a mother, but I feel like I've got those qualities with the child actors and my niece and so forth. And so to me, I like to create an environment where you can still be strong, you can still be a leader, you can still be problem solving, but you're coming from a place of nurturing so that you let everyone know that they can talk to you, and where's the hierarchy, who on set you go to speak to about these things, whether it's that you have special needs, whether you're uncomfortable about something, and not have that kind of set that feels like fear, it's fear-based,
Absolutely. And I think that overall, there are traits typically that we see in a woman, not that they're exclusive by any means, that have been seen as liabilities that truly are the greatest strengths, because this is an art, right? This is a business and it's an art. It's fully both. And the environment that art is created in changes what the outcome is. And so when we have an environment, and this again is not exclusive to women being able to do it, it just might in our society come more naturally or have been celebrated more for women to have those traits, whatever, all the different aspects and variables that came into play that brought us to this point where we're at in society. But those things are strengths, because if people are feeling safer and they're feeling like they have a place at the table, and that can come from any type of any leadership, but it needs to be there. And so if this is the way that we can have it be brought in, that shift will take place, then by all means, why would we not celebrate that shift is taking place? How can we, and how does the female lens redefine traditional tropes? in genres in a way that can resonate with modern audiences?
Again, I feel like I'm saying the same thing about like the authenticity, but it's like having more women shepherd these stories and tell their own personal stories. And what popped in my head was the film that I had here in 2018 was called Never Going Back, and my director was based on her kind of personal experiences and was very honest and open about it. And it was kind of like a teen stoner comedy, but it was young girls and teenage girls. And so it felt so fresh because, there's all of the types of films like that for males, but when they involve females, then it's always about the parental supervision and what are you doing, and it was like a heavy drama, and she's like, why can't we make a comedy? And so because it was based on her kind of personal experiences, it felt so authentic. It wasn't like, oh, well, let's write a character that sounds like a dude, but it's really a girl or whatever. It's like, it was just like, this is how we talked, this is how we acted, this was my lived-in experience. And so I feel like it's like, you can always think outside the box in terms of how to tell a story, what the approach is. But a lot of times with the different voices, you're gonna get that outside the box thinking because it's coming from an authentic place.
I also find that when women are telling the stories, you tend to find the internal arc of the character, because there's a lot of, I find anyway, that you see their journey internally rather than like an external display, if that makes sense. So you're following like an emotional arc, an emotional story, regardless of what the storyline is. And I think that's something really valuable that women bring to film. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like, we're in this incredibly difficult moment for gender and power dynamics right now, and like, I think there's so many filmmakers who are showing us that there's a future that can be different. And that, to me, I think like Jane Schoenbrunn being like a perfect example of like, her film, it's like, you can't understand the experience of what she's trying to tell you unless you experience it by watching the film, and I think that's where it's like, if you can create something that allows someone who maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to understand what you're going through and might feel alienated from that, to have a perspective that's marginalized, it's like, that's the greatest gift that film can bring,
Yeah, the power of this medium is, we like know it, but I think sometimes we forget it, and that was my sell to go into this industry, honestly, to see that the things that I really care about, that I was running a nonprofit for, and to see, oh, there's this platform in this area that I can go learn how to work in, to put these out to mass audiences, to share perspectives that aren't being shared. That was, I think we need to always remind ourselves of the power of the medium that we're working in. And we were talking yesterday, we had a panel about platforming marginalized voices, which ties into everything we're talking about. But we were just discussing the responsibility that comes with it, right? That to not take it lightly and to remember the power of it. I think a really interesting aspect of this for us as women, how do we move towards sponsorship over mentorship, where women in power are actively putting their capital and reputation behind the next generation of creators? What does that look like?
Well, it looks like getting rid of gatekeeping.
That's why we're here.
It looks like when you transition from being the person receiving mentorship into the person who's able to provide sponsorship, rather than giving someone encouragement to enter rooms, you actually use your name to provide access to those rooms.
Yes.
And that's scary because your reputation is also on the line. But I think it's important to know that if we pass along our wisdom to the next generation, we're only getting better. We're only getting better. And it has to be in more than our words. It has to be in our actions. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can create opportunities within your own production company, even if it's not a big production company, a path forward or a path for a position at the company. An example that popped in my head is, and she was one of my mentors, but there's a producer by the name of Rebecca Green that created Dear Producer. And the Dear Producer organization gave out unrestricted grants to producers. There's so many times where it's like in this industry that there's help for writer directors, there's not as much for like independent producers who are, you know, the sustainability issue is a whole other topic, but is something that's present. And so part of getting this grant was you had to agree to mentor an emerging producer for a year. And then that emerging producer, and we were able to select, you know, the producer, but we took it really seriously as to like who could we really help and in what way, and it was important to like express the goals of that producer. So particularly the producer that I mentored, she had made a bunch of shorts, she hadn't gone to features yet, so she was like, I don't know how to transition from short filmmaking to like feature filmmaking. And then I started working with her, and she's now working on another film of mine, and so it's like creating that kind of thing. But it's what's interesting is in working with her or helping her, she came back to me later and was like, hey, you're working. I was like, how can I help you? And so I'm giving her a position, but she's also helping me, you know? So those types of things, like the energy that it creates is exponential.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like making a commitment to yourself of like, okay, if I have to interview people for a job, like how many people am I going to interview, and making sure that I'm going to actually talk to people who represent different points of view. And like, you know, it's like, yeah, if you only ever talk to people who are from your same school or from, you know, your same community, whatever, it's like, that's never going to change. And I think actually giving that opportunity to be like, what could this person bring to this that I don't realize because I've never met them yet? And being like, what if they came in and they had something to say that I'd never heard before? And specifically in like a hiring, like a situation where they're actually going to be paid to do a job.
Yes, so important. Because it's so easy, again, I would say probably it's across the lines, but I just know in like lower budget filmmaking, there's never enough time, there's never enough money, you're rushing to stuff, and so it's so easy when you're hiring positions to fall back on, you know, either people you know or a recommendation like, oh, so-and-so is recommending these people, but you gotta take the next step to really make sure you're really looking so that you're not just hiring the same people over and over again, so you're from marginalized communities and getting different perspectives.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So in the world of finance, we know the idea of diversifying a portfolio is looked at as the most responsible way to mitigate your risk and ensure that many different areas of the market are accounted for. In leadership, especially creative endeavors, the same strength that comes from having many different perspectives comes into play as well. How have you seen your own perspective as a woman come into play in a way that was previously not considered, and how did it benefit the project?
I mean, I guess I'll go first, because like, you know, we all know an ISTE coordinator is like a new title, and so I was working on a lot of sets before that was a thing, and I actually remember like there was a project I was working on in the fall of 2017, and there was like a sex scene, there was nudity, whatever, and I was also the only woman in any, I think we had a female costume designer and makeup, which is sort of a classic, and nobody else, and actually the DP kept asking if I was the costume designer, which I was the producer. It's okay. Anyway, but basically it was like, I just remember this very distinctly because actually everyone did like, they were very cool about letting me do this, but it was like this thing where I was like, I really think it's important that I talk to the actors privately about what they're comfortable with, not in front of anyone else, and that they can have this opportunity to check in with somebody who is going to allow them to say no. And that being one of those things that it was like not you know, it was like, you just, at that time, you just feel like, oh, I just feel like this is something we should be doing. And I'm very proud of that, but also it's just like, it's crazy that it wasn't really a practice almost at all.
Yeah.
So you were the intimacy coordinator on your own set.
Basically, which I think comes from because I went to acting school, and then I never acted professionally ever. But I mean, like, and honestly, this came from the experience of acting school, and that being an environment in which I felt an immense amount of pressure when you're doing any kind of intimate scene to feel like to be professional, you should just do it, and which is crazy because we were just college students, right? Like there was no camera, it didn't matter, but you still felt like immense pressure, and I will never forget that because as many of us had, I had some negative experiences with it, and I just thought, if I ever have the opportunity to prevent someone else from feeling this way, I will make sure to the best of my ability they don't.
Yeah, that's awesome. And because of your experience, you were able to have that insight, right? Which is kind of the whole point of what we're talking about, like that perspective that you had from what you had lived through. You knew what someone else would need in that moment in a way that someone else might not have, right?
Yeah, and I think also kind of back to what we're talking about with sort of accessibility in general, right? It's like any of these things where then everyone benefits from being asked what they need.
Yes.
And it's not, and like every film, every aspect of it you're doing specific to that film, right? So like it's not a one size fits all, but it is a conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I started my work in the industry as I didn't really have a title and I didn't get any credit for my work. So I was an assistant to the producer. And within a month of working with him, he had me run the whole set. And any question that came up, he was like, go talk to Jacqueline. I was like, I am not even a PA. Like and I was running the PA. So it was, I mean, on the one hand, I would have loved some credits early in my career. But on the other hand, I got to really learn it all, and so I am thankful for that experience. We've talked a bit about how, in speaking about diversifying, like for us individually to diversify our experience, to work in different roles on set, it gives you that perspective of what other people are doing, that when you are the person leading that set, I appreciate our PAs so much because I could not make a film without a PA. Like the hierarchy doesn't exist in terms of value, right? There's no differentiation in value on a set, and I might not have had the lived experience perspective that I have if I hadn't had those experiences.
So I would say for myself that my lived experience has gained me a certain level of emotional intelligence. And so I'm able to recognize that in others. And when you're able to create a crew or friendships or anything where you have these deep, meaningful conversations from time to time, it comes out in the stories that you tell. It comes out in the characters that you write. It comes out in the point of the whole film or stage production or whatever it is that I'm creating. And I'm really grateful for that because often, as we all know, you're watching something and it's like, I don't know, that wasn't a good decision. And it's fine. We all make decisions from time to time that could be different, but also when you take that experience and when you turn it into wisdom and when you turn it into a script, you're teaching. And I'm grateful for the lessons that I've learned so that I can be able to provide that in my storytelling and in my friendships and relationships.
When I started as a filmmaker, I was originally a journalist before being a filmmaker, and also pursuing acting. I think there's a through line here. And so a writer-actress that then kind of stumbled into producing because I love the empowering feeling that it gave me by actually making things happen. But when I first started, I was making some family kids films. And so it's kind of like the opposite of what you were saying, is like, that like, having child actors and being sensitive to their kind of needs, but then also in the stories that we're putting out there, thinking, oh, would a mom or even a dad or a grandparent, want my child to hear this? So I remember the distributor, and I'll make, very dark and twisted films too. Like, but if I'm going to do something that's in that family kid space, I want to make sure that that it's appropriate, and both how you handle set, how you run set with children, and then the actual things that you're putting out into the world. And I just remember a distributor saying they could see a difference in those films because of the balance, you know, as far as having a woman in a creative leadership position. And I was like, oh wow, that's so interesting. And then just as kind of in a way of us being these like multi-hyphenate storytellers, so to speak, I just remember starting out, and if I said that I did these things, so many people would tell me, no, don't say that. Just say you're just a producer, because they're not going to take you seriously. And I was like, well, I could name a ton of men that were multi-hyphenates. And so I think that's changing, because I'm seeing more and more women doing it, which I'm super excited about, you know, that are writing, directing, producing, doing the whole thing. But I just remember early on in my career, you know, people telling me, don't say that. Just say you're this, because they won't take you seriously.
Because you need to be able to be put in a box, right? I mean, it's what that feels like, right? Like, I just need to know where to place you in my brain, which is so limiting.
Right, because I'm sure, as we can all attest to, all the things that we've done have made us better. Like, I'm a better director since I've produced, and I'm a better, you know, director of having written or having acted and so forth.
Yes, absolutely. If we're looking 10 years in the future, what is one legacy structure of film in this industry that you hope has been completely replaced by a more equitable model?
This perceived level of hierarchy that we have, because based off of all the things we've talked about today, clearly we can see where we belong in the film industry. And so the existing hierarchy that we've had, I love the fact that we are disrupting it regularly, and we need to continue doing that. So that in, what'd you say, 10 years?
Yeah.
So that in 10 years, it looks very different than it looks now. Similar to how right now, it looks very different from how it was 10 years ago. We just continue building, but we tear down what everyone thinks it should be because of how it's always been, and we show up and we show out.
And I don't know if this is a structure per se, but I just think there's a subconscious bias when it comes to finance for women. The organization I mentioned before, Breaking Through the Lens, we're helping advocate for gender equality within the industry and specifically within financing. And you know, there's so many studies that are done how it takes women longer to finance their film, development takes longer, these things. And I think a lot of, and I would say men and women, there's a subconscious bias sometimes that women have against other women. So to me, it's that thing of people who think, oh no, I think equally. But what are they actually doing? Are they really giving the same amount of money to a woman that they are to a man? Do they do it as quickly? Do women have to go through more hoops and hurdles to get that? You know, so to me, it's like, I don't know if that's like a structure thing, but I would love to see that subconscious bias, because we know who has outwardly biased, but the people who act like they're not, but then act, but their actions don't match it. I can't wait for that to be gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of discussion about financial value, right? And like financial value meaning like, for example, for an actor, and you say like, okay, we think this movie should be budgeted at this level because we've gotten this and this actor to be in it. We think they'll bring this much money, this director, whatever. But that's based on data from the past, right? And so if there is no data to support that, then how can you prove that there's a market? And I think there's also a lot of wishful thinking that things happened in the past that actually didn't. And it's important to acknowledge that. Like, it's like you can't have suddenly like this thriving business that's totally different if we don't take the steps along the way to change it. And it means that you need to be giving these opportunities at every level. So that's a first-time director, it's a second-time director, it's their third thing. You know, it's allowing people to actually grow and not just giving them sort of a one-time entry-level opportunity.
Yes.
And yeah, and I think just being open to the possibility that the future looking different is a really good thing. And it can be good for everyone, financially, as well as obviously for our souls and the future of like the world that we want to live in. Yeah, because there are people out there who want to see this kind of work.
Yeah, I think my hope is just that this conversation wouldn't even look like what we're having today, right? That it will have changed so much that it just would never even be possible to be the same conversation. And I think, like you were saying, I'm so thankful for the changes that we see and the people who are fighting so hard to see that change come. And it's well overdue, clearly, we know that. But yeah, I hope we just can look back and say, wow, remember when we had to talk about all those things and look where we're at now. I would love to hear, because one of our huge goals in this space is to give really practical and tangible, and I think our conversation has been so much of that. But if you have one thing that you, looking back, were like, oh, if someone could have told me that earlier on, that would have helped a lot. If there's something that comes to mind of, I can start because I know I threw this one in on you guys, but one of my favorite things and one of the responsibilities I take very seriously about being a producer and all that you get to do on a set, the things that we've talked about, is that you get to really set the tone, right? And the thing that I wish that I would have realized and would have applied to myself was that we're all people and we get to be people, and people are not machines, and people can make mistakes, and that's okay. And so I'm thankful to have had people give me the space to do that and be that, and to be able to share that with the people who work with me. Like, I'm so sorry I did it. Like, it's okay, you're allowed to be a human, you know? Like, to have the freedom to be a human being with error. Because we've talked about in other panels, some of the best moments in films are not on the page, and not because the script is not incredibly valuable. My dad, the screenwriter, in the front row. It's so valuable, but those mistakes, those mess ups, we watched the outtakes on a film, and there are some of our most favorite iconic moments that we can recite. And I think just the freedom to be a person and not feeling the pressure that and I think this is an increasing need with the ability to have robots do so much for our life. Like, to be a person, and those errors are actually, like the other things we've talked about, there's actually a lot of value, and there's, do your job well, work really hard, but you're also allowed to be a person. And so,
there's definitely so many things that I could go on about as far as like within the context of filmmaking, but in a larger context as far as like a career or just as a human being, standing up for myself, giving myself permission to say no, giving myself permission to walk away when it wasn't serving me, it wasn't healthy, I wasn't being treated well, but you're like, oh, I've been in it so long, or I've worked on it so hard, or you feel like you gotta stick through it to the end, and because I'm like, in my head, not a quitter, but at the same time, that's not, the strength comes from saying, no, I'm not gonna accept this, and I'll walk away from this, that's okay. And similar but different is also just being able to pivot or adjust. Like, you're constantly assessing, is this what I want to work on? Is this serving me? Am I happy? These various things. And then within the context of your projects, like, is this working? If it's not, well, how can I make an adjustment? And I just remember having a moment a couple years ago at Sundance, where I had 3 friends who had films at the film festival. And all of them, I'd heard of their projects previously, but then the films that played the festival weren't the ones I was aware of. And so I was like, wait a minute. And all 3 of them, they were having difficulty, whether it was raising the money, cast, scheduling, they all put a pause. They went back to the smaller thing or the more personal thing or and made those films. And those films got into Sundance and put them in a position to now go back to do that film as a later film with the right. You know, so if you don't have the courage to stop for a second, wait, it doesn't mean I'm giving up on this. I'm just now going to do this. And it's because you're assessing as you're going forward, you know.
Yeah, I think that that speaks to me also is like, why are you doing whatever the thing is you're doing? And like, because it's going to be harder. Everything is always harder than you think it is, you know? Like, it's like, if I knew how hard it was going to be when I started out. But I think it's like, as long as you know why you're doing something, then you have the strength within you, you know? And like, if there is a point, it is what allows us to fight for these things that are so hard to do. For, again, I mean, like, I don't know, we're on a panel about women in film. The statistics for the Annenberg study that I'm sure we've all seen are horrible, you know? Like, there's been almost no progress. And I think if you can view that as like, oh, it's a bummer, it doesn't matter, nothing we do means anything. Or it can empower you to say, like, this is why I am doing this is why I care so much. And even if the job that I'm doing is really miserable or difficult for whatever reason, I see the purpose of it and I understand how I am serving the purpose of my career, of others' careers, of this project, of this message, and it enables you to keep going.
These are all such great reminders. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I would go back and talk to 21, 22, 23-year-old Abba, and I would remind her that there's no box. There's no such thing as a box. I have so many different interests in so many different areas, and what we were talking about before about people placing you in a certain category, it feels better when somebody can see me and say, oh, she does this. But at the time, I had so many things that I wanted to do, and from the outside, they weren't encouraged because you need to pick one so that people know how to receive you. And I did it anyway. But yeah, I would tell her that there's no box. Be you. Be authentic. Do what feels right to you. You have many talents, and explore each one of them and find your why so that you know what you're doing. Who are you talking to? Who's your audience? Don't listen to what is happening around you. What's happening internally and up here? What is this relationship? What are you supposed to say, and how do you say it properly in whichever medium you decide to say it in? Is it film? Is it theater? Is it music? What am I doing? And as long as I know what my goal is and I know that I'm being authentic about it, I'm going to walk forward. And if I don't fit in a box, create a new one, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I think stay the course, right? And not in the way that I think we typically hear that phrase. Because stay the course doesn't mean, like you were saying, keep pushing forward on something that you know is in your gut, not the way you're supposed to be going. But I run the company with my family and with my brother Steven, and he began in this industry as a child actor. I'm gonna kind of steal one of his favorite things that he likes to talk about. But when he has, you know, he'll get connected to young actors moving to LA, young filmmakers, and they'll ask to speak with him, and he'll talk with them, and they'll just be like, what's your advice? And, you know, and he'll share with them, he'll say, if you can do something else with your life, go do it. Yeah. Like, if there is something else that you can do, go do it, because this is hard. But if this is what you are meant to do, and if there is not that other thing, if this is it, go do it with everything inside of you and do not stop, because that is the key. Like, if this is what you are meant to do, go do it and don't stop, because it will be hard. There will be times where you are sitting there and you're like, what is happening? What is going on around me? But if this is what you're meant to do, then you have to go do it, because that's why you're here, and that's what you're here to do, and that it matters. What you do matters, and there is so much going on in the world. There's so much pain, and if we can shed light on that pain from a new perspective, if we can bring relief through humor for a moment, if we can help someone feel seen because they see themselves in a variation of a character that we've written and put into a film, like, if that's what you're meant to do, by all means, like, do not stop. Like, keep going and do it, and pivot whenever you need to, but don't stop. So, I think that's our conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to our incredible guests. Please stick around and chat. That really is the heart of this. So yeah, thank you guys. We're so thankful for you all.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
get a group